Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm here with yet another group of Lightning Round presenters. Last week, we met with the Lightning Round presenters from the first session of the Donor Participation Conference. One of them liked it so much that he came back. Hi, Marcus. So this session is going to be about growing engagement with underrepresented groups. We're going to have these fantastic minds that we have here on the call today, a few others, and then there's going to be some fantastic conversation and presenting from Joey Zumaya from LinkedIn for Nonprofits and Dr. Rashunda Mahone from, I want to say Temple, but well-known. She's a well-known consultant in this space. So this is fantastic. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So what I thought is, how about we just do a round robin and you share what it is that you're going to share with the people on Friday. And if anybody has questions that's listening to this today, please do feel free to put them in the chat. We'll answer them. If you have thoughts about your DEI efforts at work, most probably in your nonprofit organization, please also just put them in and we'll answer them as we go. So without further ado, Marcus, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to join again this week. Last week was amazing. I learned a ton. I'm Marcus Howard. I'm the CEO of MetaArena. I've basically built a platform that turns brands of any size and in any industry into a gaming company. So you can use video games to engage both your employees and your customers. And in this context of philanthropy, your donors.
That's fantastic. So the danger with having Marcus at places is that he takes over because everybody's into gaming. So Marcus, do you want to ask your question and see if we get some answers about favorite games?
Sure. So to everyone here who's joining us on the panel, Ron and Mike and Pat, and those who are watching, what's your favorite game? And if you're watching via LinkedIn or wherever else this is streaming, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll see it here in this console that we're in. But eager to learn what your favorite game of all time is.
Awesome.
Good question.
Some food for thought. And what I love about Marcus's platform is that it's very much built from the ground up to be inclusive. That's a big part of what he's promoting, and nonprofits that want to bring more people in. And that's kind of, if you want your donors, if you're just looking to be more inclusive, to have a higher number of donors, you're going to have to bring new people in. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I think it's a fantastic fit. So Pat has been a dear friend, a colleague at the University of Tennessee, and he was one of the very first presenters with the Donor Participation Project almost like 14 months ago, Pat. And your session was incredible. I think he was on the move on a cell phone. He got everybody talking. So we're delighted to have you back.
It's great to be here, Luis, and I'm glad to join the rest of the panelists here for this introduction. Currently working at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia. Very excited about the work we're doing. I'm a senior development officer, work with major and legacy gifts. And basically what I'm going to be discussing on Friday is how to get underrepresented populations involved. Much of what I'll be talking about is working with African-American and Latinx donors, more often African-American donors. It's been my experience, but, just some of the nuance that needs to take place and that occurs during those interactions, from identification to outreach, the whole donor continuum. So very, very excited about sharing what I've learned, my passion for work in this area, and the impact that brown and Black donors are having, in the philanthropic community.
This is amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. Pat, so tell us about your history a little bit. You were at Morehouse earlier. You've had a fantastic career, right?
Yeah, it's been a great career, all aided by Mr. James O'Bear, who is still currently at University of Tennessee, gave me my shot at fundraising. It'll be 10 years this August, so very excited to celebrate that milestone. And started at Tennessee in Knoxville, and made my way here as a regional development officer with UT down here to Georgia. Spent about 3 years at Morehouse School of Medicine as an assistant vice president of volunteer engagement and donor philanthropy, helping young Black doctors, young Black men and women become doctors, and made the transition about 2 years ago this September to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And for those who don't know, I had two young daughters and one older daughter. Both of my younger girls have special needs. And so the mission of children's and helping to make kids better today and healthier tomorrow aligns with what my wife and I care about, very deeply. So very passionate about this work.
Wow, just like a huge example of how you can have integrity and work for the causes and, not only the causes, but kind of do fundraising in a way that's true to your principles and be super successful. So thanks so much, Pat.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Awesome. So, boy, Pac-Man and Super Mario Bros. So that's how far. So if anybody else wants to share their favorite game, please go ahead. Mike, what is your favorite game?
Yeah, mine all time is College Hoops 2K8 for the Xbox 360. I thought the gameplay was very smooth in game, and then Legacy mode, the recruiting, all that I thought was pretty realistic to what a college coach would go through. So that was mine by far. It got me in love with basketball, and then obviously the 2K series. So I religiously play 2K 22 this year, and every year I go out on 2K Day and get the new NBA version. So that's mine.
Wow.
But yeah, but I am not at all a basketball player. Not very good at basketball. I actually grew up playing hockey. And luckily, I am better at texting than I am at playing sports. So Mongoose as a company has a texting platform called Cadence. Hundreds of institutions are using us in annual giving, and I will talk about, ironically, Patrick, your friends at University of Tennessee Foundation. So they wanted to measure the impact of a text as sort of an immediate solicitation with a link to give versus something more conversational where you're asking to send the link. And I had a hypothesis going in that one would be better than the other, and one was significantly better than the other, blew it out of the water. So I'm excited to talk about those results on Friday.
That's so interesting. Did you break it down by types of constituents, or maybe I just need to wait till Friday?
You'll wait till Friday, but yes, we broke it down by all sorts of groups. So my hypothesis was, no spoilers, was that loyal donors, prior year donors would just want the link to give, and they wouldn't want the back and forth. And we did not find that was true. But I'll explain why it wasn't true and what really happened on Friday.
Awesome. So big lesson. You need to draw people in. Very good. Very good. Mr. Cohen, welcome today. I think you're going to speak about a different type of underrepresented group, but one that's still very important in philanthropy.
Correct. And thank you, Louis, and good to be joining you from Southern Oregon this morning. And before I forget, I want to give Marcus my old school, showing my age game of choice, which I can rarely find now, Frogger, way back in the day. Yeah. So on Friday, I want to talk, and I should say I'm a consultant. My company is called 2468 Appreciate, as in that old cheer that we used to cheer from the sidelines as evidence of good sportsmanship. The underrepresented population that I want to talk about philanthropically is students. A lot of my work happens in the higher education space. And my experience, I was a vice president for advancement for 17 years at Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania, small college. Most of student conversations around philanthropy had to do with giving and gift campaigns. And the lived experience was they weren't very successful, or they were successful for about a minute. And then when the students left, they became unsuccessful. So instead, I have a different set of questions that I believe is really important to ask students before they leave you, that start to set the foundation for relationships that eventually produce loyal donors.
Awesome. So Ron, we look forward to learning from you. We had another donor participation project session with Franklin Guerrero from AARP, and he was talking a lot about age diversity, which is something that they look at, obviously at AARP, but it's something that is also important. So our philanthropic base needs to be diverse, hopefully, in as many ways as possible. I have a call here on this screen. If you have a success story with a DEI effort with bringing in an underrepresented group, please feel free to share it. We'd love to hear about it. And I also want to welcome Brian and Gabriella, who just joined us. They will also be presenting this Friday, or in Brian's case, a colleague of his will be presenting. And welcome. We're just doing a round robin. Feel free to share a little bit of what you're going to be talking about. Maybe Gabriella first.
Sure. I am based in Detroit right now. I am representing this FINS organization. We are a social justice organization, transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. We have an entire pipeline that starts with providing free music education in the public schools in Detroit and Flint, and goes all through higher education, offering grants, competition, professional development to Black and Latinx musicians throughout the country. And our successful stories are based on driving our mission to fundraise money, because we are a very unique organization on what we do. So we use our mission to be able to reach and communicate and just engage with our community.
Fantastic. And Gabriella is a woman of many hats at her organization, which is in the music world kind of legendary. So this is so exciting to have you. Thanks a whole bunch. Brian, would you like to share a little bit, introduce yourself, and maybe give us a preview of what we're going to learn?
Hey, everybody. Great stuff. Love what everybody is sharing here. On Friday, Dana Carpenter from RNL and Amy Burke from Wellesley College will join for the DPP conference and talk about some of the success of the Schuler Education Foundation Initiative, which is an initiative to grow young alumni giving across a number of institutions. We also conducted the largest ever young alumni survey in U.S. history. What they'll be sharing is a really incredible appeal to dress graduating seniors in a cultural stole. So what happened was they surveyed, and 5 institutions surveyed their alumni and found out that diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice were key giving areas. We know this about all U.S. donors, but particularly young donors. And they went out specifically to support the graduation of underrepresented students. So really an incredible project, saw great response, and there was an immediate direct impact with pictures and everything. So kind of making the point that surveying donors, then going out with an appeal directly related to the impact that they want to have, is really going to amplify your response. Allows people to take immediate action with their philanthropy and support students. These are institutions, the institutions that were involved, very close, tight-knit relationships on campus, national liberal arts colleges where the interpersonal relations are an absolutely key part of the experience. So kind of leaning into that, listening to donors, and then taking action. People will say things like, boy, young alumni giving is declining. Except for every institution, and I'm going to make Lewis smile here, that's actually focused on it, put the resources, taken some risks, and listened to their donors, their volunteers, and the groups that have not historically been included, has seen massive increases when they put their resources there. So yeah, it's true that young alumni giving is climbing, but if you actually listen to donors, you can make a huge impact. So that's what Dana and Amy will be sharing on Friday.
Super interesting. You bring up a really good point that the first session of our conference addressed in part, which was surveying and listening. And that, the first session was about how donors don't want to be talked at. And when you want to scale that listening, you can do listening one-on-one, you can do focus groups, and the next step is surveying, right? When you want to reach more people. I'd be really interested, now that we have a few minutes, to hear either from folks in the chat or from folks here on the call about your surveying experience. Have you, do you do a lot of it? Is it something you want to explore? you know, I just wonder if anybody here has experiences or insights into that.
Well, I'm happy to explain a little bit more. These surveys, by the way, were not anonymous. They were private. So we made an ethical commitment to not share what people had said, identified with their name. But we actually knew when these surveys went out whether people had given before. I'll give you an interesting thing. We asked people if they had given before to their institutions, but we actually knew and encoded that into the data ahead of time. The mismatch of people who had thought they had given but hadn't, or the reverse, was about 30 to 40%. So it's interesting to think that we think that donors think of themselves as a live bond or that they've given in the past. They might not, actually, because giving is defined in so many different ways by donors, and giving is in the eye of the donor, right? So what we've learned, and this is something that we call market research or actionable persona creation, actually looking at the donor's history, then looking at what they say that they're interested in giving in, and then giving appeals specifically to those areas. Massive increases in responses. Donors feel listened. They feel like they've been given an opportunity to act. So the future of surveying and the creation of things like donor journals and personas is private but not anonymous. That would be my tip there.
Hey, Brian, a question. You said there was a mismatch. Was it in one particular direction? So lots of people thought they had given, but they hadn't, or just kind of all over the place?
I have to get the people, Shay and Dana, and the people who did the survey to give you an exact answer. But I recall when I initially looked at the data, it was about equal. So about an equal number of people who thought they had given but haven't, or had given but thought they hadn't. And we think about things like our senior giving campaigns in the higher education world, where you know, hey, give me $1 so I can count you on the list. Or we think about things like an event, like a Relay for Life event. You know, people may, that very transactional, often smaller gift might actually not be seen as giving, where somebody might see their church giving or their local action organization as more of a giving thing. They might not see it. So it's interesting to ask donors those questions. You know, my point, Louis, you've heard this from me before, and Mike's heard this from me before. You know, let's stop assuming what donors think. Let's just talk to them and listen, right? And that's I think a key inclusion effort as well too, particularly you know, with the recognition that I think we're finally coming to as a philanthropic world, that when people have been systemically ignored or excluded, you know, the answer is to go out and let them talk authentically and listen and respond and provide feedback.
That's amazing. Pat, that was kind of your point when you spoke to us at the donor participation project the first time. Just, you know, go out there and talk to them, please. People were like, oh, you need more data to do that.
Yeah. No, you just need to ask more questions, and you need to get an audience, and you can get everything you need to know right there. Yeah.
That's incredible. Marcus, does gaming have potential, you know, not only as a kind of an engagement tool, but as a, you know, data gathering, bi-directional communication, you know, type environment? I can think of chats, polls. Does that kind of thing happen?
It sure does, and that's what I'm going to cover. And thank you for reminding me. I got so distracted about talking about people's favorite video games that I forgot to share what I'm going to discuss on Friday. But what I wanted to cover was the fact that gaming, again, is ubiquitous with kind of pop culture and really almost a universal language. So you have this ability to have a cross-section across basically all age, race, gender, and regional demographics. And so there's an opportunity to kind of leverage that, especially for younger demographics, because the younger generation over indexes on gaming, to create both an engagement opportunity and then a fundraising, a donation opportunity, particularly if you're able to kind of bundle the gaming behavior or activity with the donation. So instead of trying to just directly request funding for the purposes of a donation, and there's nothing wrong with that, offer young alumni, students the ability to pay a subscription or something of that nature to get engaged within the gaming community or the gaming activity. And now they're not just gaming, they're gaming and supporting a cause that they care about. I'll talk about that in more detail on Friday.
Okay.
Remember when World of Warcraft went live with their philanthropy programs? We thought it might be, you know, maybe 20,000 or something. Really interesting things occurring in the gaming community when gamers step up for key causes. And particularly when we look at the gaming industry and some of the issues with inclusion and gender issues, something that's very needed, right?
Definitely.
So folks, connect with Marcus, connect with everybody that's on the line today here. These topics are super important and everybody's talking about them. Ron, I understand you do surveying too. Sometimes we work together on surveys. What do you see as the most important benefits other than what we've discussed?
Well, I'm going to answer your question a little differently than you're posing it. My experience is that not enough organizations that engage in survey work kind of complete the cycle and report back to the audience that they're asking what they're learning. And it's a missed opportunity to establish dialogic patterns that people sort of expect. My philosophy is, if somebody is worth asking a question, it's worth reporting back to them what you've learned, whether or not they've responded, right? Because we don't know why people don't respond. It's typically not because they objected to the question. Life gets in the way. And so let's give people the grace and the benefit of the doubt and keep them in the conversation. And I would like more organizations to do that and see that as an ongoing engagement and information share that builds relationships.
Awesome. Kind of make it part of the culture, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. So before we leave, we need to hear about Gabriela. Do you use surveying? How do you bring in the different voices of all your constituents into your work?
We don't do regular survey per se, because we don't have a venue, right? Like, we don't sell tickets for a specific thing. We have our education program is based in Detroit and Flint, but we do different activities and have a lot of partnerships all throughout the country. So we use a lot of social media to do our survey, and that's how we base all our statistics, based on how our patrons engage with our social media and how they respond to our emailing. So I'll be talking about a little bit of that on Friday. A lot of how we communicate with our audience and their response is based on our social media right now.
Awesome. And that's a huge
Especially our
opportunity.
younger audience. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so easy. It's gamified, and it kind of does the research also for us. If we see something resonates, you get more reach, and it's a little bit of a research tool if you use it the right way. Well, excellent. Everybody, thank you so very, very much. We are excited to learn from you on Friday. And I invite everybody who's here to check out Ron, Mike, Marcus, Patrick, Brian, and Gabriela here on LinkedIn. They post really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
Although Pat is usually about really beautiful pictures, but I love your work, man.
Thank you.
So thanks, everybody. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.